We are live.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this public safety meeting to order, Tuesday, July 7th. We're doing this virtual Zoom meeting. This is 11:32 a.m. We just have a couple of things on the agenda for public safety. Number one is a discussion on compliance engine. Mark Killian, Chief Mark Killian. Oh, please, I forgot to say who's present. Who's present at today's meeting is Councilman Adam Yoder, Councilman John Mackey, myself, Bonnie Katz, Chief Mark Killian, and who's in the back? I can't see who's behind you.
Sam Ungst, he's Platoon Chief Ungst.
Sam, I couldn't recognize you from back here, okay?
Mustache.
Okay. Josh Warfel will be doing our, is in charge of our Zoom meeting, and Janice Frank, our city clerk. Okay, Chief Killian, you're up.
Okay, so I apologize as I'm opening some things here. I'd sent members of the Public Safety Committee some information on a program called the Compliance Engine. Chief Ungst and I sat through, we've actually sat through a couple over the last few years, demos on this program, and I'm going to give you a little background on what this is. So by ordinance, the Bureau of Fire is responsible for enforcing the International Fire Code. And as the structure of the department has changed over the last several years, we have lost our fire inspector, our full-time fire inspector, and our assistant chief's position, which were primarily responsible for fire code enforcement, fire prevention, investigation, et cetera. So, as we restructure as a department, we need to come up with a better way to maintain fire code compliance throughout the city. And one of the primary issues that we've run into over the years, and even as Chief Ungst was a fire inspector, I was a fire inspector prior to the position being eliminated. One of the responsibilities of any business or commercial property in the city that has a fire alarm system, a sprinkler system, any type of hood fire suppression system, smoke removal systems, they're required by code to have those systems inspected at certain intervals and provide those inspection reports to the Bureau of Fire as the AHJ. So what we see with those is honestly about a 10% compliance rate across the city. We get very few inspection reports throughout the year, and it becomes extremely there's a big time requirement, and it's practically impossible to follow up on all the businesses that we need to try to follow up on for compliance for these reports. And the issue with this is these are life safety systems within the buildings that are potentially going unchecked, uninspected, and so it becomes a life safety issue. What the compliance engine does is they are a third-party vendor who works through the companies, the inspection companies, the row sprinklers, the Icon Fire Protection, the Communels, and it would, by working with the compliance engine, we would require the vendors to submit the sprinkler reports, the inspection reports into the compliance engine for our review and for maintenance and upkeep. The compliance engine handles letters that go out to businesses. They handle phone calls between the sprinkler, between the inspection companies and the businesses. They really do a lot of the back end work for us in return for us to increase compliance throughout the city with fire and life safety code. The nice thing with this is it's free for the fire department for us to use. There's no cost associated. And it doesn't require a resolution. It doesn't require an ordinance, because by the 2015 version of the International Fire Code that we use, we are authorized to determine how we receive those records, the records of fire code inspections. So really the purpose of bringing it to you today was an awareness and discussion on your thoughts, because we think this is an extremely beneficial program to work, a beneficial program to get involved with. There's numerous other agencies in Pennsylvania that are using it, other third-class cities who we've had contact with. So there is an executive summary that I've attached with the email that, if you've had a chance to review, just kind of talks about the current landscape of where we are. The percentage of life safety systems that go uninspected or unmaintained, the false alarm issue, which is significant for us. Our department runs about 25 to 2,700 incidents a year. Several hundred of those are false alarms, which could be greatly reduced by proper care and maintenance of the fire alarm systems. So really this system would increase our efficiency pretty significantly. There's also a PowerPoint presentation attached. I guess I'll ask you guys, how in depth do you want me to go with this from a time standpoint?
Well, I think, Chief, because we didn't get this till like 11 o'clock,
Yeah.
none of us had a chance to go over any of this. We didn't know whether there was a cost factor involved. You explained what this is at this point, and I think it's, since there's no cost involved and it's going to be beneficial to the department, I think I would like to just have time to go over what you sent us. Adam, okay. John, Adam?
Yeah, just glancing through this stuff very quickly, around the cost factors. So reading this summary, it's free for the fire department and thus free for the city. It appears to be zero charge to building owners. I guess the fee is paid by I'm assuming the inspecting contractors.
Yes, sir.
Is that accurate?
Yeah. So the nice thing with this is there's a couple options here, and the one option I'll get into a little more in depth, but the fees are paid by the inspecting contractor. So the sprinkler company, the fire alarm inspection company, and they pay the compliance engine per report that they send. So it's generally up to them whether they bill, kind of pass that fee along to their, their clients or not. I did ask that question to the gentleman who we've been working with, and he said about 50% pass that on and about 50% don't, because what they found is as we as a city crack down on compliance and making sure that these reports are in, they're actually going to have an increase in business because there's going to be occupancies who haven't had inspections done in years that are now going to be required to follow up and have those inspections completed. So it doesn't cost, for us specifically, it doesn't cost us anything. It doesn't cost the building owners anything directly. Those fees are paid for by the contractors, per report that they send in. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it does to a degree. It just, it's a little bit of a different business model, which, makes some sense. Chances are, to your point, it will essentially increase costs for some of our property owners in the city if that fee is passed on to them. So, again, I'd be a little cautious regarding that. But that was just the first thing that really stuck out to me. Again, I haven't had a chance to look through all this kind of stuff, which I will, though. So it may be a good idea to have this on the agenda in 2 weeks again, just as a more follow-up, so we can have a little bบof a deeper conversation on it. I don't know what you think of that, Bonnie, but that's just sticks out to me.
That's, I would like to know, how aggressive is this company going after small businesses?
Well, it wouldn't. So the thing you have to understand is this isn't necessarily going to go after businesses. This is going to go after the property owners of the occupancies that these systems are in. Remember, we have a code that requires sprinkler systems, that requires alarm systems, that is important for, from a fire department standpoint. We also have a code that requires, in conjunction with those systems, that it requires those to be inspected. So that is the building owner's responsibility. So if, I just use an example, you have a large occupancy with a building owner that is responsible for that sprinkler system, it's generally not going to be the responsibility of maybe the 10 businesses that are inside that building to maintain the sprinkler system. It's the building owner's responsibility. And we handle those things on a very regular basis. But because of where our department is at from a staffing standpoint, we do not have the time to follow up on all these businesses to make sure that they're compliant with the fire code. So this would be, this system, this company would help us maintain that compliance. And again, the letters go out directly to the contractors to say, hey, this is the system we're using. You're required by the 2015 version of the International Fire Code, which City Council has adopted, to abide by the system that we're putting in place. And then it would also go out to the building owners of larger commercial properties that we know have systems in them from our occupancy lists that us as the fire department has established over the last 15 years. So we have to be cognizant of who those fees are getting passed on to, but we also have to remember that, one fire in a building with an uninspected system and the damage that causes, and then the questions as to why us as a city have not been enforcing the code that we've adopted becomes a whole larger issue.
Yeah.
Does that not, though, codes, they do the inspections, and
that's not completely true. The codes department enforces the International Building Code, the International Property Maintenance Code. It is the fire department's responsibility by codified ordinance to enforce the International Fire Code, which all this information, which all these requirements fall within the International Fire Code. So, and the codes department too is down to 4 officers, from 7. We've consistently reduced staff with an expectation to maintain the same or better level of service, and we just can't do it. So at some point we have to either make the decision that we're going to use a third-party vendor for some of this information to maintain public safety and really to maintain operational systems for fire departments, for fire safety and for our personnel safety, or we have to put a couple people back in the prevention inspection division of our department to follow up on these things.
Would you be willing to share that information with codes, with buildings?
We share that information on a daily basis.
You do? Okay. I didn't know where you all stand with this. Okay.
Yeah, no,
because I assumed that it was up to codes going into the buildings to take some of the pressure off the fire department, because I know they've come into, my building, my store,
So the codes department and the fire department are looking at 2 different things.
Okay.
We're looking at the sprinkler systems. We're looking at the fire alarm systems. We're looking at smoke dampers. I mean, we could go on and on with the things that are specific in the International Fire Code, but the codes department is not generally trained or knowledgeable in the International Fire Code related things like the fire department is. We have a plan and is budgeted this year to promote 4 fire lieutenant, 4 lieutenants in our department that will assist with commercial property inspections, because commercial properties from a fire code perspective are supposed to be inspected on a regular basis, and we haven't had the resources to do that. So we're trying to put systems in place and work with codes, to ensure this work is being done. But really what it comes down to is departmental priorities and, the balancing act that we need to maintain between code enforcement, building compliance, operational firefighting, so we're trying to prioritize those, and the work that the compliance engine would do for us for no cost would save countless hours, to try to have that done by codes and fire department personnel that we just don't have.
I can understand that. John, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I was kind of curious, at what point, if ever, would the fire department or the city have to get involved in the follow-up process with the building owners? So let's say this company comes out and finds something wrong. They notify the building, the owner of the building. What does that process look like? Do we have any feedback from any of these other cities as far as, how this company handles that type of situation?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll be very specific with that. So the compliance engine, what they will do is they'll make contact with the building via letter or via phone call that says, hey, you're due for your quarterly sprinkler inspection. And it's up to the building owner to have that inspection scheduled, and the contractor who does that inspection to submit those reports in the compliance engine. We as a department are the ones that review all the information that goes into the program. So really the compliance engine acts as the contact point to the building and property owners and the information gathering point for us. So we would go in there if there is a system that has failed inspection, then we would be responsible for going in and addressing that deficiency. And that will require people going on site, our firefighters, myself, Chief Ungst, other platoon chiefs, other trained personnel in the fire department going on site and ensuring that the deficiencies in those systems are maintained.
Okay.
And I have spoke with, again, York has been using it for some time. Reading has a pretty aggressive fire code department underneath their fire department who has used this. And really what it does is it eliminates somebody having to sit in an office and make phone calls with building owners and follow up on it with building owners that haven't had their inspections complete. It takes that, and again, as you read through the PowerPoint, here we're seeing, over generally within a year time frame, we're going to increase the amount of reports and compliance we get back by greater than 50%. Just because, again, we're now holding the building owners accountable for the systems that they have, the safety systems that they have in their own buildings.
Great.
And they will be charged for this, right?
Well, so no, they're not directly going to be charged. The contractor who comes out and does their inspection is going to be required to submit their inspection report into the database. And along with that submission, they're charged a fee for submitting that report.
And how much is that fee?
So the fee starts at $15. So to get into that, the compliance engine charges them $15 per report. And then we also have the option as the department of increasing that fee. So say for the annual inspection that's required, we can say, okay, the compliance engine charges $15. We're going to add another $10 onto that fee. So yearly, the sprinkler contractor is going to pay $25 to submit that inspection. $15 of it goes to the compliance engine, and $10 of it would come back to the city or come to the fire department to potentially assist with getting a person back in the fire inspector role to help maintain compliance or maintain the safety systems in the building. So there's some options there, but the base fee is $15 per report. So it's a relatively nominal fee. And I mean, we're talking a lot of these sprinkler inspections cost hundreds of dollars. So when we're talking $15 on a potentially a $500 sprinkler inspection, it's a pretty nominal cost to the contractors.
Well, I agree with Adam that we should bring this back in 2 weeks. And I really do think it should be on the agenda for the rest of council to hear, because you are going to be charging a fee. So this, this company is, so therefore it should, this isn't a voting, we're not voting on anything today because this is a discussion, but I think eventually it's going to have to come to that. Okay. And I think we should do that in 2 weeks, Chief.
Yep. Sure, I understand that. And just again, because the city has adopted the International Fire Code. In the International Fire Code, it specifies that we have the right to basically tell the contractors how we're going to receive the information. So this is not, there's no resolution or ordinance required. It's simply, we're simply enforcing the International Fire Code as we've been, permitted to.
Yeah, I think we all understand that. I would like the rest of council to be a part of this information also, since this isn't going to be on the agenda. Okay. I would like to see it on a council agenda just for information purposes, and also information purposes for the community.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions? Mark, thank you so much for that information. Next thing on the agenda is a resolution authorizing an agreement between the City of Williamsport and Mark Halgerini. I'm sorry.
Okay, so before you is a resolution authorizing an employment agreement between Mark Calderini, who we have made the job offer to for our deputy fire chief's position. The employment agreement was developed basically by HR, myself, and city solicitors, and signed by Mr. Calderini, and specifies terms of employment and compensation, residency, et cetera. Because Mr. Calderini is an outside hire and not coming in from within the ranks of the department, and as a member of the collective bargaining agreement, as a former member of the union, the employment agreement we thought would be necessary to give him some specifics regarding his job status and employment. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have regarding this.
Adam? John, do you have any questions?
A couple that just stick out. So tell me a little bit, you had mentioned he has a history locally before moving away and now he's coming back. Is that accurate?
So yeah, I'll give you, let me give you kind of the condensed version of this process.
Sure.
So the deputy chief's process, just again, a little history here. We had at one time, the city fire department had 4 administrative chiefs, had a fire chief, 2 deputy chiefs, and an assistant chief. Since 2008, we had a fire chief, a deputy chief, and an assistant chief. At the beginning of this year, the determination was made to try to get additional staffing on the floor as our staffing has decreased from 40 people and 40 firefighters in 2004 to the contractual minimum of 33 now. It's been our intent to try to increase staffing on an operational standpoint. People actually out, firefighters actually on the floor riding fire trucks fighting the fires. So we made a determination to go from a fire chief, a deputy chief, and an assistant chief to just a fire chief and a deputy chief. We had a couple internal candidates that we made job offers to who turned the position down. So at that point, for varying reasons, at that point, we decided to open up the position externally. We did a nationwide advertisement, and we got 31 applicants nationwide. We spent, Chief Hagan was part of this, but we spent the better part of 6 weeks interviewing, doing phone interviews and Zoom interviews, and then finally in-person interviews for the deputy chief's position. And we decided to make a job offer with Mr. Calderini. He's originally from Pittsburgh. He was a paramedic in the city of Pittsburgh for several years before moving to Florida, him and his wife, for warmer weather, where he's been a battalion chief in Sarasota County, which is a department of about 600 uniformed firefighters for the last 20 years in their special operations division and training. And he brings a varied background and a strong background in a lot of the things that we're looking for in deputy chief. His wife has family in this area. He's visited the area multiple times, with his wife's family. So that was kind of the local connection that he has to us.
Sure. Okay. This is going to increase our number overall in the fire department. It sounds like, correct?
No, sir. This will not increase the number at all. So no, we'll still be maintaining our contractual minimum of 33.
Okay.
We are at 32 right now with a recent retirement.
Gotcha.
So, excuse me, I'm sorry. We're at 31 right now, actually, with a recent retirement.
Okay.
Mr. Calderini's hire will bring us to 32. And then we're in the interview process for new hires to bring us to 33.
Okay.
I will be working with finance and the mayor to hopefully hire an additional, an additional firefighter, new hire in the fall with a pending retirement in the spring to try to catch that, that retirement, get that retirement in before it happens. But we do have five in the drop. I believe we have 5 personnel in the drop who can retire at any point. We've done some considerable data gathering and number crunching on what reductions in staff does to our overtime. And I'd be happy at some other point to have lengthy discussions on what it looks like for us operationally when we reduce numbers based upon the response that we're we're not getting from our volunteer partners, in some of our large scale incidents. So
yeah, no, I appreciate that. Again, I trust that we have needs all across City Hall. I mean, we had this argument a couple months ago with the police department. In the short term, I think we're wise to maintain that contractual minimum. I mean, we've been doing it for a couple of years. I think we can go through, and it sounds like you're in that process of making sure we maintain that minimum, which is good, until we have clarity surrounding what next year is going to look like. So that's why I was kind of asking that question. So that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Chief, a couple of questions I have. First of all, we didn't have a bio on this gentleman. What is his age?
So kind of funny, we're not allowed to ask that in the interview process, and it never has formally come up, but he is, from what we're gathering, he's early 60s. He's been in the fire service for a long time and has a pretty varied background. So as part of this, and I will mention this too, as part of this employment agreement, he will not be entering into the city's retirement system. So he won't be part of will not be part of the city pension system.
Can you do that with the union, or is he permitted to do that? You're shaking your head, Chief Damon.
So we've worked through that with the city solicitor, and because he's an outside hire and he has chosen not to be part of the pension system, he obviously won't be getting a pension. So because he's not going to be eligible to receive the pension benefit, then he won't be, or he's choosing not to receive the pension benefit, then he wouldn't be contributing to the pension system. And we have an MOU, we're working through an MOU with the union right now, actually, as to that effect. So, and this has all gone through Austin with legal. And
so therefore, this gentleman is only going to be with us for a couple more years.
Potentially. So the agreement is for 3 years. He is expressed to us that he has no intention of being here for a short period of time. And I think my biggest point would be the opportunity for us to get someone with a very broad, diverse, varied background in a larger department with a lot of good perspective. As he's a paramedic. He's done extensive fire service career, so he's going to bring a wealth of knowledge and information to us. And even if we have him for a short amount of time, it's an opportunity for us to mentor and work through our professional development process within our department to prepare those next leaders to step into the position.
Let me ask you this. From what I understand what you said, he comes from a department that had 600 firemen.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, he doesn't have any experience with a small department then. Isn't there a conflict here of working with a huge department within a huge department coming into a small department?
I don't believe so at all, because just because he's from a big department doesn't necessarily mean staffing levels are different than they are here. His department operates with similar staffing on apparatus that ours does. And realistically, as deputy chief, he's going to be responsible for training and day-to-day operations. So, and again, he comes from a volunteer system outside of Pittsburgh with that is maybe similar staffing levels to ours. So I don't think that correlation is necessarily true, because, regardless of what size your department is, you're bringing, again, some much different, different viewpoint and different experiences to our department, which is going to, potentially assist us down the road with our accreditation process and our strategic planning and everything else that we're moving forward on.
To me, I sat in on the interviews for your position, as you well know, and the amount of experience that we have internally, I was so impressed. Not only experience, but the passion and love of the city. I'm just surprised that we had to go outside, to find somebody instead of staying home based.
Mm-hmm.
I find that, I found that very interesting that this is how it's come about. knowing some of the men that were interviewed, some of them were absolutely incredible. And not to have them in the position and hire from outside, is this not going to create maybe a problem internally that you're bringing somebody from the outside in?
So throughout the entire interview process, the union was involved. We had numerous members of our department involved, through the phone interviews, through the Zoom interviews, the in-person interviews. They came in, all the candidates came in and spent the day with us, each one individually. And, people from our department were involved throughout that entire process. So, and Chief Hagan can attest to what that process looked like. It was very, very in-depth, long process. And probably well over half of our department had direct involvement in the hiring process. The thing you have to understand too is we can talk about the compensation for these positions, because that's really where a lot of this comes down to, as to why internal candidates wouldn't want to take a position like this. You're asking someone who, who has the opportunity to work overtime and a flexible schedule, to now lose the opportunity to work overtime and work Monday through Friday. So the two candidates that the job was offered to internally, that was the deciding factor, was the financial standpoint of it. You're taking a huge amount of responsibility and additional work on for financially not a whole lot of benefit. And in some cases, losing thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars potentially a year. So there's a whole myriad of reasons why we chose to go this route. The biggest one being, remember, the department as it stands now is not, our intention 5 years from now is not to be the same department that it is today or 5 years before. So, you don't know what you don't know. So as we venture into the strategic planning and accreditation process, to bring someone into the department who has experience and background with that is very beneficial to us as a department, as we move forward and try to change the face of our organization and what our priorities and our strategies, goals and objectives are moving forward. So we have phenomenal people here, the best firefighters and officers that I've ever worked with, and I've traveled the country. But because of some of those, I'll call them challenges that exist internally, this was the decision that was made. And I would say, and Chief Sam, could attest to this, it's been widely supported by an overwhelming number of overwhelming portion of the department.
I just wanted to clarify that, only because I know how incredible our firemen are. Mm-hmm. And, I think, by the way, good job on the fire yesterday. Mm-hmm. That was a hard one, in the heat and everything else. That was really a hard one. Yes, I just wanted to clarify all of this, because you don't want to see dissension in the ranks because of being brought in from the outside. Just wanted to clarify all that. And plus, I don't deny anybody coming in with experience. I mean, that's vitally important in so many different areas. I always say you don't have to reinvent the wheel with a lot of stuff. So, I can understand that. I just wanted to clarify some of these points.
No, and I appreciate that. And I think I can assure you that I'm acutely aware of the challenges of bringing someone in from outside the department, but I'm also extremely excited about the opportunity, because I think this is value added. This is something that is only going to make our department stronger in the long term, with Mr. Calderini's skills and experience and background. And at the end of the day, I'll say this, I hope, I would love to put us in a position where a few years from now, or however long that Chief Calderini's here, that we don't have to go outside again, because we have people internally that are ready and want to take that position. But for now, I'm not willing to compromise. We need to get somebody in here that has a passion for what they're doing and wants to work with us and move our department forward. And I think we're pretty confident that we're extremely confident that is the case right now.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Any questions? I need a motion then for the resolution authorizing an agreement between the City of Williamsport and Mark Calderini.
I'll make a motion to forward this on to the full body council with a positive recommendation.
I say.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Chief. Next
Thank
thing
you.
on the agenda is a discussion on the fireworks, which some of the displays look like they were done professionally, which was also kind of frightening. So I don't know who wants to go up first, Chief Killian or Chief Hagan. Chief Killian, you're the one who sent us information from the fire code.
Yeah, I don't mind starting here. So prior to Act 43 being passed in 2017, the fireworks law, the association, the organization that that we are part of as a city, the fire department, the Pennsylvania Career Fire Chiefs Association, and the Pennsylvania Fire and Emergency Services Institute took a very strong stance against this legislation, strictly from a public safety standpoint. And unfortunately, we have reaped we were proven right over the last several years with the issues that we thought would come out of this legislation. And it has basically reduced our cities to war zones. Williamsport is completely is very fortunate that we have had as few incidents as we've had, compared to some of our other, some of my other counterparts in York and Harrisburg and Reading and Philadelphia and Scranton and Wilkes-Barre. I mean, they were completely overrun and overtaxed over the past week. So it is our stance. It's the stance of the Bureau of Fire, and it will always be the stance as long as I'm in charge of the Bureau of Fire, that Act 43 needs to be either repealed in its entirety or significantly amended. To give us as municipal leaders the flexibility to ban these fireworks, these displays within our city. As it stands right now, through the vast majority of the city, these fireworks are illegal. The Act 43 specifies that these consumer grade fireworks cannot be used within 150 feet of an occupied structure, and not in public places. And I would challenge you to find a spot within the city that is, that abides by that. The biggest issue that it comes down to for us from a city standpoint is enforcement. And that's kind of where Chief Hagan comes in. So before I kick that off to him, I should make you aware, as I laid out in the email, that last week Senate Bill 932 was adopted by the Senate, and is moving up the chain, that allows municipalities over 58,000 people to prohibit the use of consumer grade fireworks. It's in the stance of the Pennsylvania Municipal League, along with the PA Career Fire Chiefs Association and PA Fire and Emergency Service Institute, that if this Senate bill is going to move forward, that it be changed to essentially give all communities that right, regardless of the size. Why that kind of arbitrary number was put in place is beyond me, but we need to have the opportunity in our city to ban these types of displays. Over the past several years, we have had multiple house fires, dumpster fires, trash fires, caused by consumer grade fireworks. And again, we're very fortunate that we haven't had the issues that some of the other municipalities across the Commonwealth has. So with that, I'll kind of kick it over to Chief Hagan if he has anything to add, or happy for the discussion here, at least amongst this group.
I think we knew, Chief, that when the governor signed that bill, I can't believe that's 3 years ago. It doesn't seem that long ago that we were going to have problems, and it's proved itself out. And it didn't make sense at the time that he did that. But Chief, we're handing it over to you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chief.
My opinion is we will enforce whatever law you would like us to enforce. It's as simple as that. It has to be a realistic law, something that our solicitor agrees can be enforceable. It can't be a vague loitering statute or anything like that. If it has specific elements that can be proven in court, and it's constitutional, then we will enforce it to the greatest degree possible. To do so, we need people who are willing to go into court and testify for us. And that's another issue, certainly at the summary level. In a lot of fireworks complaints, what you have are people, oh, just tell them to cut it out. I don't want to make a big deal out of it, stuff like that. And that is not what we use to start or end a criminal prosecution. So it's not as simple as it seems. It's not every single person calls wants to go as far as a courtroom. Most people just want it to stop because it's disturbing them or creating a dangerous situation. And so a lot of these calls end with a warning, and probably still would. But like I said, it's our standard. We will enforce whatever law there is on the books. And if we have a complainant that wants to take it that far and we have a violation of a statute that we can prove, then we certainly will.
Well, when you go over our ordinance, is there anything that you see that we should tighten up as far as, the police department goes? Yeah, I'm going through this and it states 150 feet away from any structure. We did put into effect 1 week before and 1 week after. I didn't see a time though.
I believe it's midnight.
Is it midnight? Okay.
I believe so.
Can you please give me the ordinance number again?
I hear 70904, 709.05, and 06.
And I think kind of to add on to what Chief Hagan is saying, that the bigger part of this issue is the ordinance is great, but find me a spot in the city of Williamsport that you can legally shoot a firework off that's further than 150 feet away from a structure and isn't on public property. Essentially, every firework that goes off in the city of Williamsport is an illegal firework based upon Act 43, which is the state law. And the challenge with that is, like Chief Hagan had mentioned, is enforcement. So I would imagine, again, I'm not a police officer, nor do I claim to know much about this, but you need to, they're probably going to need to see somebody lighting this thing off and have, again, a witness that'll attest to that before a citation would hold. So that's why we've taken a stance statewide that there needs to be a complete ban. We need to have the ability as a municipality to say that this does not apply in the city of Williamsport, or the law needs to be repealed, period. Because this is an issue across the Commonwealth in every municipality, not just here in Williamsport. So for us, the technical challenge here is how we address it moving forward if the law isn't repealed or amended.
Well, what you're asking is a neighbor to turn in your neighbor. And I don't know how people are going to do that. I really don't, unless you don't like the neighbor. I know the police department was inundated with phone calls. I know we on council were inundated with text and phone calls of, what are you going to do? I mean, there were times the windows were rattling. And I know the phone calls that were made to the police department, I mean, their statement more or less to the public was, what can we do? And that was, what can you do? I mean, by the time you would get there, it's over and done with. And unless people are going to turn in their neighbors or who they see doing it, you're not going to accomplish anything. I don't know how you go about that. I really don't. And I don't know whether it was this year primarily because of the virus that people were going a little bit more nuts. I don't know whether because we didn't have fireworks in the city, but it was a lot more activity than ever before. We all know that as a fact. So will this happen next year? I don't know, but we should be prepared in some way of somehow. I don't know though. I don't have an answer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there is one. I mean, again, Chief Killian, I agree with you. This and Chief Hagan has even referred to this too. This all comes down to enforcement. We could in my opinion, we could shorten the amount of time that people can have fireworks. We could amend this however we want. At the end of the day, we need the input and the participation of the community. And if people are really serious about their levels of frustration with what's going on and their concerns of safety, we need their help in enforcing this. We all do, and that would be regardless of if they could have them within 300 feet for a month, or if they were completely banned in the city outright. So I don't know what we could change that would change that. I don't know that there is anything that we could change in the ordinance that would change that.
My recommendation on this is if you keep them, you limit it to July 4th only, that one day. On top of that, you make it illegal for anything that goes up in the air. The primary, the fire department will attest to this, the primary threat is airborne fireworks. So something would have to be drafted that would limit firework activity to that stuff that stays on the ground and only on July 4th. That would drastically decrease the number of complaints. It doesn't really make sense to do it for days before and days after. Anyway, it never did. The whole point is to celebrate it on the day of. So I think if you were going to keep it and not make it completely illegal, that would be a way to help those two things. Keep them from flying in the air, keep them on the ground, and make it only July 4th.
Yeah, that's an idea for sure, but maybe I'm missing it. But how does that help the enforcement of that? I mean, I don't know that changes individuals' behaviors of shooting them off before and after the 4th of July. And if that happens, obviously they're still going to call into the police department, the fire department, what have you. So how does that help the enforcement of the ordinance?
Well, if we saw something flying through the air, we might not need a witness to testify in court. If we could follow the last one that was shot up in the air, we might be able to walk right up on somebody doing it and enforce it without the need of an actual witness. Obviously, we'd have to give the community a fair amount of time to digest the new language in the ordinance. But after we could give warnings for a while and make sure that everyone's been made aware. And then after a while, we could enforce it. That's just with it flying in the air. The idea of keeping it to July 4th is basically if you're doing it on any other day in the city limits, again, we wouldn't need a witness. We could just go there if we heard them going off, whether we had a witness or whether we saw it with our own eyes. It would be easier for us to enforce if we weren't so dependent on witnesses. And I think it would also limit the activity. People don't want to get in trouble, but it would put us in a position to more proactively enforce this if it were more limited on days and times, and also the type would make it much safer.
Chief, what about the tent sales with all the fireworks? Do they, from what, I don't know, I haven't been to one, so I don't know. Do they sell fireworks? They're selling the fireworks with stuff that goes up in the air. Now, I'm assuming, is that that's legal?
Yeah, it is legal. They excuse me, they have to apply for a permit. Permit's approved. We inspect those tents, to make sure that, that they fall in line with the code. But yeah, I mean, it's completely legal for them to sell these, and maybe a question for Chief Hagan would be, are we able to, as a city, to adopt an ordinance that is more stringent than the state, what the state law permits? Because my stance with that would be, we have an ordinance in place that says you have to be 150 feet or greater away from a structure. If we see an aerial firework in the city and we follow that back, we could potentially be enforcing that right now, because it's, again, you're not going to find a spot that's within 150 feet. So to me, it comes down to maybe Chief Hagan and I getting together and putting kind of a joint aggressive educational and enforcement campaign in place, where, you know, we show the community that we're taking this seriously, because this is not about your you as an individual. This is about your neighbor. As you launch a firework that goes 300 feet in the air and lands on your neighbor's house and lights their house on fire. You know, it's no longer about your property. It's about everybody that surrounds you. Aside from the noise and the animals and all the other issues we see, it's a public safety issue for the people who surround you as you're choosing to do these things. And that's the frustration for me. You know, just is the lack of awareness of those around you and the potential dangers that it has to your neighbors.
If you
I
deny
agree with
permit,
that. The 150-foot provision in this pretty much takes care of it. I think it takes care of needing to change any wording or worry about whether we're making it more stringent than the state, because it basically covers every area in the city. The issue really comes down to how long do we want to let this go on? Just on July 4th, or do we want to let it go on more days? I really think we should consider limiting the time. By doing so, you're limiting the number of complaints drastically.
So this is this was passed in 2018. So we've had what, 2 New Year's and now 2 4th of Julys, right? It seems to me this 4th of July was by far the worst compared to the previous 3 holidays, the last 2 New Year's and last year's 4th of July. So I'm just wondering if it's a result of other circumstances, because we had that same time limit under the previous 3 holidays, and it wasn't as much of an issue. I still think there was a little bit of an issue probably in the beginning and the end of the timeline. I think people get a little bit excited and probably jump the gun a little bit, but seems like this year. So I'm just wondering, we can look at that, but I'm just wondering if there were a number of circumstances that were causing that to be a little bit more rampant this year. That's the only thought that's running through my head right now with the timeline.
I think we've all thought of that so many people were, just anxious to get out and do something different.
Yeah.
The scenario of watching what was going on, whoever took the video on the mountain and covering what was going on in the city was absolutely incredible. It really was, to watch all these fireworks that were up in the air. Chief, if we did, you said that they have to apply for a permit. Would we be outside the legal limits if the permit was denied for anything sold that goes up in the air?
That would be that'd be a question, I think, for the solicitor and for Joe Girardi. I mean, they're selling something that is legal in the state. There's only 2 locations that we approve within the city are the tents that go up to sell these. So, I'm not comfortable answering that question. To Mr. Yoder's point, I think what we're seeing is this law has now been in place across Pennsylvania for 2 years. So there's a couple things happening here. The first year, there's not a whole lot of people that know about it. The second year, more people are aware. There's more places popping up that sell these consumer grade fireworks. I've had reports from other fire chiefs that they're selling these in grocery stores, these types of fireworks, which is illegal. So I think this is a combination of a lot of things. The current situation with everybody being bottled up, and just the fact that we're getting, this has now been legal for a little bit of time. So people have more of an awareness that, hey, I can actually do this now. So they may be a little more in tune to make that, to use these things. So it was definitely an issue last year. We discussed it. But again, different administration, different conversations. So I think, you know, as this goes on, we're just kind of ramping up our efforts to bring this to the forefront on a state level and a local level, because of what we've seen over the last week specifically. I would say January, you know, New Year's Eve hasn't been a significant issue that I've noticed. It's specifically this kind of 2-week, 10-day period around the 4th of July.
Which makes it even worse because it's dry outside usually, and it just creates more of a fire hazard, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree with Chief Hagan that we need to probably shorten up the timeline. That helps us out in terms of being able to enforce something. And, you know, I think what we're all talking about here is we're going to get maybe a little broader commentary on society today's, you know, this is one of those issues where people say they want somebody to do something about this problem, but the bottom line is, to Chief Killian's point, is, you know, this isn't about you. This is about your neighbor's house or the house a block away from you. We need, you know, people in Williamsport, if you're listening, I would say one way you can maybe help this problem is get to know your neighbors, get to know the people who are living around you, and feel comfortable going to them. Maybe not the night of the fireworks that you hear, but maybe the next day, and talking to them in a rational, reasonable manner and explaining to them why you're upset about these fireworks. Because we can't, you know, the Chief Hagan's right. I mean, you really don't get upset about this until it's right next to your house, and you don't want to have to go to court and testify against somebody that you may have to live next to for the next 15 years. So, you know, we could ban fireworks. You know, people are going to get fireworks. If they want fireworks, they're going to get them. It's like any other substance or a gun or drugs, whatever it is. If you want it, you're going to get it. You're going to find somewhere to get it. So we can shorten the period of time, and we can say we're going to try and enforce this as much as possible. But at the end of the day, I think, you know, the citizens of Williamsport just need to step up to the plate a little bit and just get to know the people in your community better. And, you know, it's harder to turn a blind eye to that kind of stuff when you have a background of somebody living in the house next to you, and you actually have to, you know, these people, and you care about them. So, you know, and again, I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but this problem to me has got a lot of tiers to it. And unfortunately, I think the most effective one is that, you know, get to know your neighbor and have a conversation with them about, you know, why these type of fireworks aren't okay. And then we can start working on everything else.
I think it's a good point, John. To both Chief Killian and Chief Hagan, we have till New Year's Eve. If in the next couple of months you could come up with something, if you feel that we should amend our ordinance to bring it to just one day, then we can bring that to City Council. But this has been a heated discussion from the community, from all, you know, what we were experiencing. And we had to address it today, only from the standpoint of we do have to, you know, appease what's going on in the community, and let the community know that we are going to try and do something. But I think John is right on. Talk to our neighbors and tell them we just don't feel comfortable with what you're doing. And not only are you putting other people's lives in danger, but you're also putting our public servants in danger too. You know, our fire department, our police department, as far as trying to chase after all of this. And if there was, God forbid, a fire, you know, it just puts everybody's lives in danger. So I think if we can come up with something to amend, shorten the period. I do like it, Chief, that you said just July 4th. Then that just puts more teeth into what we have. I don't know what everybody else feels, but it does. It just gives.
There's no reason for people to be setting off fireworks on June 27th. I mean, no. So I really kind of like that. If we can, if you would like to come up with that, we can amend that in the ordinance. I mean, the rest of the ordinance really kind of makes sense, the 150 feet.
like you said, Chief Killian, there's nowhere in the city that you could do that. And the aerial display, I don't know how we combat that. Like you said, I asked about that. If it's legal to sell them, how do we combat that? You know, but those are the ones that are the dangerous ones. They're flying over the houses.
Yeah, and
So-
these are all challenges. And to your point, Ms. Katz, I think it's important so the public understands, and you brought it up, the phone calls that you folks receive as council and the ones that we receive here at the fire department and the police department. We're not okay with this.
No,
We understand there's an issue, but for the general public, you need to understand too that we're trying our best. There's only so much that we can do at this point. So that's why we're here having these conversations. We don't want to let this go. We want to be aggressive with it because it is a public safety issue, but we've got to be smart and realistic about what we can do.
exactly. So if the two chiefs can get together and come up with something, bring it back to us. And I guess we have to do this before New Year's Eve. Of course, I come from Philly. What we did in Philly, we got the pots and pans out and banged them. We didn't do fireworks. So other than that, is there any other questions about this? If not, I want to thank everybody for their input. Let's bring this forward in a couple of months, okay, so we can get this on board, okay, with the ordinance and tighten it up just a wee bit, okay? And I thank you very much. I have nothing else on the agenda, as far as I'm concerned. Anything from the administration? Anything from council? I need a motion to adjourn then.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very much. A great meeting.
Thank you.